The job openings were down from 7.4 million in June and came in modestly below what economists had forecast. Russia continues to bomb Ukraine.
Russia fired more than 500 drones and 24 missiles at Ukraine overnight as Ukraine's president and European leaders push ahead with talks aimed at strengthening Ukrainian defenses, adding momentum to what has so far been unsuccessful U.S.-led peace efforts. The main Russian nighttime targets were on civilian infrastructure, particularly energy facilities, as another winter approaches 3 years after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russian aerial assaults hitting civilian areas and the Russian army's drive to crush Ukrainian defenses along the front line have not abated in recent months. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Hurricane Lorena intensifying off the coast of Mexico's Baja California Peninsula. Forecasters issuing a tropical storm warning for parts of the area. Meteorologists warning of life-threatening flash floods and mudslides. The Dow is down 217 points. The NASDAQ Composite up 187. More at townhall.com.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6745. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 five-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6745. That's 800-575-6745. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
In the nation's capital, prosecutors are struggling to convince D.C. grand juries to indict people arrested in President Trump's crackdown. More on the story from Washington correspondent Ben Thomas.
Federal grand jurors in the nation's capital have refused to indict two people charged separately with threatening to kill President Trump. It's rare for a grand jury to balk at returning an indictment, but it's happened at least 7 times since Trump last month ordered a surge in patrols by federal agents and National Guard troops in Washington. One case involved a man charged with throwing a sandwich at a federal agent. After the grand jury refused to indict, prosecutors charged him with a misdemeanor. While the proceedings are secret, U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro says the grand jury's refusal to indict somebody for threatening to kill the president is the essence of a politicized jury. Ben Thomas, Washington.
Breaking news and analysis at townhall.com. 42-year-old Gonzalo Leon has been charged with murder.
Julian Guzman had been ringing doorbells in East Houston Saturday, a prank known as ding-dong ditching. According to police, a witness says the suspect came out of the door, ran out into the street, and was firing down the road. This is not the first time the prank has turned deadly. In 2023, a California man was convicted of murder for killing 3 teen boys by intentionally ramming their car after they rang his doorbell as a prank. And in May, a Virginia man was charged with second-degree murder for shooting an 18-year-old. I'm Julie Walker.
OpenAI and Meta making changes to their chatbots. OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT, will introduce new controls for parents to link their accounts to their teen's account and receive notifications if their teen is in distress. More on these stories at townhall.com. I'm John Scott.
The following is an America Matters media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
Vote for me and I'll set you free.
Over me.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Re-Federalist Radio, where we take a look at current events through an original intent of the Constitution lens. I am Brady, also known as Warhamster, and joining me, as he does almost every week, is my good friend, constitutional mentor, Mr. Constitution himself, Douglas V. Gibbs.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that last little advertisement talked about parents using artificial intelligence to tell you if your kids are well or not. We're trusting AI to child psychiatry already.
The one that caught me is the fact that 1798 law regarding foreign enemies has been struck down as being used for the immigration issues because it doesn't include gangs.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because that is one of the topics we have saved for today.
Very good.
I'm glad you caught that one. It's funny. This show, the whole theory of the show, talking about current events with how would the founding fathers have looked at what our government's doing today. In the age of 2025, there's just so much ammunition. Show prep for this takes me. Yeah, just scroll headlines and you got plenty of material.
Oh yeah.
If it's not, it's not some kind of restraining order by the judiciary branch, it's Congress doing something that they have no right to do. You name it. It's just, the states are going amok in some ways. There's always something on our topic to talk about.
Well, and when it comes to that particular law, and I know you don't want to get into it yet, the founding fathers, what they were, of course, included what they were experiencing, but the question is, do these things completely? Do they also translate down the line? And so we'll get into that. I'm looking forward to that topic, but I'm sure you've got some other interesting ones you've come up with as well.
Yeah, I got a couple warm-ups for it.
Couple warm-ups. Okay.
Yeah, before we jump in, just wanted to thank everyone listening on American Matters Radio, 93.7 KPGF, AM 1060, and all of you listening on the affiliate networks and stations, especially ZakiRadio.com. And if you ever want to catch the replay of our videos, just go to Rumble and type in War Space Hamster, and you'll see all my videos, many of which also feature Mr. Gibbs. So let's just jump in. What do we have today that fits our subject matter? Let me do a quick screen share. Do I have the right one? Hang on a second. Kill some dead air for me, would you?
I'll tell you what. Let me do this. When you go to War Hamster's channel, the Rumble channel, one of the shows that we've been doing is on the Re-Federalist Report is we're going through the Madison's notes. Madison took copious notes during the Constitutional Convention. And I always talk about the importance of context when it comes to Constitution. And you want to know the context? Read these guys arguing it out, debating it out, going at it, and the changes of mind and all of that. And so we've been going through that day by day. And what are we, in the middle of June or something like that now? Go ahead.
Yeah, we got a couple months left to go, which it'll take a while, but it's a long series and it's worth doing.
Yeah, and so when you go to find the series, because there are other videos on that page, when you go to rumble.com/W War H Hamster, that'll get you there. When you go there and you see all the pages, all you do is you look for Re-Federalist papers, and then the ones that indicate Madison's notes. We're in number 8 right now, so won't take long to catch up.
Yeah, we just got done with number 11.
Oh, number 11. Wow. Time flies.
It does. Okay, let's get my screen up there. Take you guys to a great website.
Oh, it's executive orders time.
Yeah, it's at whitehouse.gov. And, I just check it daily because Trump he's done, well, how many executive orders are we up to?
And let me say something about that real quick. I've complained about how presidents in the past have used so many executive orders and how they were used is more often than not, especially those who don't respect the U.S. Constitution, these executive orders establish regulations or establish law. Now, Trump is not perfect, but there has been an immense number of executive orders, but nearly all of them have been very constitutional. Now, there is one, not so much, that may be on the docket today. We'll see. Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting. The headlines of executive orders, you see them, you scream, that's, executive overreach. And then you go in there and read the order, and they're super careful to word it like in compliance with existing U.S. federal law. I'm asking the executive branch to enforce the law the way I'm interpreting it. And
Right.
he's got every right to do it. You know, almost every single time we've asked the question, is he overstepping his constitutional authority? And very few times have we found that he is.
There's times where, like you said, it almost looks like he is, but then the wording is very carefully crafted. And once again, the purpose of the executive orders is for the president to execute law, or to send out directions to his executive branch on how to execute that law, or a proclamation.
Okay, well, we get back from the break. We're going to be talking about this most recent one, which is making federal architecture beautiful again. And you know Trump loved writing this one. The man is a builder at heart. And
we're talking about the scratches on the...
Well, it's going to get entertaining, but I want to go through this executive order because it's insightful, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about it.
Making our architecture beautiful again. Well, he's been doing so there at the White House. That's one thing I've noticed.
They had the ballroom, and he's pranking Joe Biden, saying his portrait's just going to be the auto pen. I don't know if you caught that over the weekend.
Oh yeah, and there's an image. I don't know if it's AI creative or it's the real thing. It's got on the wall Trump, and then the auto pen, and then Trump.
Well, I'm glad he's enjoying himself because he's still getting attacked at all sides. But we'll jump into this one when we get back from the break. So until then, cheers.
At Northern Nevada Family Dental, we are proud to announce a wide range of advanced dental services by way of the Photona Lightwalker Laser. The Lightwalker Laser can efficiently and effectively treat most periodontal problems, from deep persistent pocketing to peri-implantitis and a multitude of conditions in between. Have cold sores? We can inhibit the cycle of the virus and sometimes even prevent them from occurring. Do you have a snoring or CPAP problem? Through the amazing healing power of light, we can treat tissues inside the mouth without anesthesia, appliances, or cutting, so that after just one treatment, most people sleep better and quieter that same night. By using the power of the laser intraorally, we can also smooth facial wrinkles and tighten sagging necklines, all without you having to be numb, and there's no downtime. It can even be done on a lunch break. Through the FDA-approved Power of Light, these treatments and many more are now available at Northern Nevada Family Dental in Sparks. Have I piqued your interest? Give us a call at 626-7772 or visit us at northernnevadafamilydental.com.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
What? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Man, we really could have used him.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to...
And we are back from break. I am Brady, a.k.a. the War Hamster, and still with me is Mr. Constitution Douglas V. Gibbs. We left you at the break. We're taking a look at a screenshot of the most recent executive order by Donald Trump. And I'm up there again. So what is he trying to do here? He says, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered. The purpose. And he's going to give a complete historical background. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but he's basically, this is the gist of it. The founders, in line with great societies before them, attached great importance to federal civic architecture. They wanted America's public buildings to inspire the American people and encourage civic virtue. And on and on and on like that. Then he starts talking about the Capitol building, some of the history, some of the architectures. Remember, Trump is a builder.
He comes from the construction industry, as do I. So I know all about people like him because I used to work for these people.
Talks about in 94, the GSA, Government Services Administration, responded to this widespread criticism by establishing the Design Excellence Program. Program was to provide visual testimony to the dignity, enterprise, vigor, and stability of the American government. Unfortunately, the program has not met this goal. And Trump's criticizing the architecture of the government buildings, which I think is pretty hard to disagree with. Then he starts talking about the difference between, gets into different styles of architecture. It gets fun. He decides to give some definitions.
Make
Brutalist
sure people understand what he's applying this to.
Brutalist architecture means the style of architecture that grew out of the early 20th century modernist movement that is characterized by a massive and block-like appearance with rigid geometric style. That's what he's trying to get rid of.
By the way, if you read the Cleon Skousen's list of 45, that's also one of the communist goals, to make architecture ugly and grayish and blockish and anyway,
yeah, and that's very much the case if you look at the old Soviet Union. I mean, without a doubt, it was very distinctive, and which is a darn shame because Russian architecture used to be among the very best in the world.
Oh yeah.
He goes into the classical architecture, deconstructive. Basically, he's given an entire architectural lesson here.
Right.
All right. So
this is a man who knows.
Yeah. So here's what he's saying. Executive departments and agencies shall, to the extent practicable, adhere to the following guiding principles for federal architecture. And it goes into a little bit more about, what those standards are. It's really what the standard, it's really a case of one man's beauty is another man's whatever. Trump obviously is very qualified to be commenting on this, but
right.
Can this executive order stand up beyond his administration? What if someone has totally different architectural style? It's kind of tough. But he's given them guidance. He says design must flow from the needs of the government. He says the choice and development of the buildings should be considered the first step of the design process. Choice should be made with cooperation with local agencies. Here's where the executive order kicks in. The Administrator of General Services shall adhere to the policies and principles set forth and shall expeditiously update GSA policies and procedures to incorporate such policies and procedures in advance of the purpose of this order. Basically says he will ensure that the GSA architects, whose duties include reviewing, etc., follow this executive order with classical and traditional architecture. Now, stopping right there, Doug, the million-dollar question, of course, is does he have any constitutional right to give direction to how federal buildings are built?
Absolutely. First of all, there is a law here that he's following that he mentions earlier, and also he'll get into the U.S. Code further down in this executive order, laws that exist that are in place already. His job is to execute those laws. And as the executor of those laws on how it's going to go about, because he's in the real world situation, Congress was not. So absolutely he does. Now it comes down to, once again, 90% of the 99% of the time, it comes down to whether or not a law exists regarding the executive order. There are certain situations where the law doesn't have to exist. There's a constitutional provision, or it's a proclamation, so the law doesn't matter because it's a non-binding proclamation. But there's a law that exists here, and it's federal property, both of which falls under federal government, and the federal executive is the one who executes those laws and those actions in the daily progression of his duties.
Yeah, you got to wonder if his review of the new Federal Reserve building really was a hair trigger for him to get more involved in the architecture.
Well, and what triggered me when you mentioned this, and I didn't know, and it doesn't it's not directly related to this, but it's an interesting story. Is so in the Rose Garden, they did all this work, and then while bringing in statues, the cart that was being used by one of the subcontractors was faulty, and it put scratches and gouges in the new flooring that they had put in. And of course he noticed. It could have been behind a bush around the corner. He would have noticed. And of course he noticed. They got fired, And then there was an outcry because he fired these contractors. He hired the contractors. Just like he's in charge of the executive branch. He can hire, he can fire, he can plan, he can take action on his branch. It's his branch. He's the boss of the branch. All right there in Article 2, it says that the executive power shall be vested in the president. That means the power to execute the laws and to run that executive branch, which exists for the purpose of executing the laws.
Yeah, we'll see if there's any interested parties that are able to manage to pull a lawsuit on this one, because it's pretty clear that this is well within his constitutional powers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
All right, let's jump into our next story and get my screen up there. This is the case that Doug mentioned earlier. Reading from justthenews.com, the appeals court blocks Trump administration's deportations of Tren de Aragua members using the Alien Enemies Act. TDA, this in quotes, was not the kind of organized force or engaged in the kind of actions necessary to constitute an invasion or predatory incursion, Judge Leslie Southwick wrote. You want to touch on that first sentence? Because you've got some experience with litigation regarding border enforcement.
You talking about the first sentence here or the title?
This one right here. Either one. It's just right here. I mean, this is the judge's concluding decision.
Okay. Here, let me pop it up so I can read that a little bit. Okay. So TDA, Tren de Aragua, was not the kind of organized force or engaged in kind of actions necessary to constitute an invasion or predatory incursion. Okay. So first of all, illegal entry into the country, it doesn't matter if they're criminal or not. Broke the law coming in. Right? It's like someone breaking into your house. Well, yeah, but they're peaceful. Otherwise, they broke into your house. Remove them. But I actually would rather get into the history here of the Alien Enemies Act, because this is where it'll answer that question the best.
All right. Well, let me go down a little bit to the point you just made. Do the history first, and then we'll go to break and we'll come back and look at some of the things they actually said that's different than the headline. You want to go into the history?
Yeah. Let's go into the history. So, I was just making sure because you're talking break already. I'm looking at my clock here. So, the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 was passed and signed under the John Adams administration. The John Adams administration had the Aliens of Sedition Act, which wound up being abused. They went after political enemies. That's beside the point. The excuse they used was that Tories were trying to undermine the government. There was loyalists to the British Empire that were infiltrating and trying to embed themselves into our country and our government. And so these people needed to be apprehended and deported, sent home to Britain or Canada or wherever, because listen carefully, their allegiance was to a foreign power. Now, the first argument against the Alien Enemies Act was, well, it's for wartime. This was not passed during wartime. It was passed and signed in between the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812. That was the argument used the last time for the appeal. That's why now they're using a different argument. Now they say, well, it doesn't apply to gangs. It's not who they're members of. It's the fact that they are subject to a foreign power and they are here to undermine our system. That's all it is. That's what the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 is all about. For people who are subject to a foreign power being inside our country, and they're doing what they can to undermine our system in any way, criminally or within our system or whatever.
And quite clearly, they're committing crimes against the American people. I mean, that shouldn't even be disputable.
Well, but Tren de Aragua goes even further in the sense that they have ties to the Venezuelan government. So this really is a foreign invasion force. But
that's the point that Trump made when he gave the executive order. He goes, right. This is why I'm determining this. And so with these judges, and we'll get to this in the dissent, what they're basically doing is they are superimposing their judgment on international affairs over that of the chief executive, who actually has that authority. And that's the problem here.
Well, judges who have Trump derangement syndrome, and it's so bad that they believe, And understand, they wouldn't put up with this if it was a Democratic president. But basically, the courts are saying, we're your overseer and we can micromanage how you handle your affairs. No, you can't. That's not your job. There is no place in the Constitution that gives the federal courts the authority to micromanage a branch of. There's something actually called separation of powers. They apply the law to the cases they hear, and that's it. They're done. And notice the courts don't have an enforcement arm.
Very much so. That's why they keep trying to pull Trump administration people back to court for contempt, although that's not working out too well. So let's just go into this a little bit more.
Okay.
3-judge panel, which was split 2-1. They issued that a target device declaration had launched an invasion or predatory incursion against the U.S. at the Venezuelan government's direction. Without meeting that standard, they say he failed to justify his claims that they had targeted or their invasion and predatory incursion. I would imagine during this hearing they produced some of the evidence, classified evidence, that's showing that, or maybe they did not. But there's a reason Trump was able to come to that conclusion, and his National Security Council didn't correct him.
Yeah, but even then, that's not necessary. Broke into the country, committed crimes in the country, placed Americans at risk. What else do you need to know?
All right, when we get back from this break, we'll jump into this a little bit more, including the excellent dissent.
Talking to Victor from Precision Diamonds. Victor, I remember you in the old days, Park Lane Mall, a kiosk. It's a lot different now, isn't it?
Man, that was a long time ago. In 1988, we've been blessed that we've been guided, and finally we have bought an amazing building across the street from the convention center. We found a better way to serve you. We call it home. We managed to create amazing energy. And when we say, welcome to the family, boy, we really mean it.
It is a family affair.
Absolutely. And we couldn't have done it without our wonderful customers who believed in us for all of 27 years. So I'm here to really say thanks to all of our wonderful family members who we started as customers, who now we know each other's children and grandchildren.
All those years ago, a little kiosk in Park Lane Mall. Park Lane Mall's not there anymore, but you are still here.
Yeah, we have solidified our future by buying this beautiful building on Virginia Street. So we're there to serve you.
Thank you, Victor. Precision Diamonds, your local jeweler across from the convention center.
Barbecue, the Butcher's Kitchen, would like to thank every customer for your loyalty and continued support through these challenging times. Call for takeout and delivery of rib tips, brisket, ahi, tuna, roasted veggies, and much more. Barbecue's open from 11 to 7, Monday through Saturday, and delivers hot food safe and healthy. Call 499-5855 for details. 499-5855 Barbecue, as featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives. Get real. Get into Barbecue Reno.
The nonprofit Reno Sparks Assistance League Thrift Shop offers quality merchandise, including a selection of women's and children's apparel and shoes, books for every age, baby clothes, accessories, sporting goods, toys, housewares, linens, home decor, and seasonal items and jewelry, all at affordable prices. Come in the shop, donate, or join this all-volunteer organization. Assistance League Thrift Shop, open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 4 at 1701 Vassar Street in Reno.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now back to the...
All right, I am Brady, a.k.a. the War Hamster, with Douglas V. Gibbs, Mr. Constitution, for our third segment of today's show of Re-Federalist Radio. When we left you, we were talking about how the appeals court blocks Trump administration's deportations of TDA members using the Alien Enemies Act. The key part of that is using the Alien Enemies Act, which we'll get down here and the judge will explain. TDA was not the kind of organized force or engaged in the kind of actions necessary to constitute an invasion. This is written by Judge Leslie Southwick, a George W. Bush appointee. Key point here, he also noted in the ruling that Trump could use many other laws to deport the alleged gang members. They're saying you can still deport them, you just can't use the Alien Enemies Act. And here's the part that I want Doug to get into. It may well be that these and other peacetime tools are not so quickly utilized as the Alien Enemies Act, but the government has substantial authority to remove the TDA members independent. He was basically saying this is not written the way it was intended by the people who wrote the act. So what say you on that?
Well, it was. It was intended to remove people who are who have, once again, subject to a foreign power. The reason why he wants to use the act, though, is it fast tracks their removal. All the other laws that are in place that he could be using, the immigration courts get involved, and there's appeals, and it takes forever to get through the process. He wants these people out, and he wants them out now, and using this act allows him to fast track removing these people from the country. Once again, the law was written during peacetime regarding people that were in the country who had allegiance to a foreign power and were undermining our system, that they were dangerous to our system and even possibly infiltrating our governments. And this is what the purpose of the act was. And if that does not basically encapsulate what the TDA is all about, because it's not just some criminal gang. We hear gang, and that's what it's being called. We think some street gang in LA. This is a very elaborate, mafia-style, large criminal organization, and it's tied politically to governments, specifically Venezuela, who right now, because the communist leader Maduro is resisting and all this other stuff. Matter of fact, Maduro just put out a statement, well, you better not be talking about regime change here. This is all tied together. This is an international war against America. These are the troops that are in the country. This is definitely what the Alien Enemies Act was all about.
And Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act, claiming the Venezuelan regime of Nicolas Maduro had deployed gang members to the United States to destabilize the country. I'll take it a step further than that. We've seen credible intelligence that working through Venezuela, Hezbollah has been, putting their illegals from the Middle East. Some of them, this is a terrorist organization, and they are working with Venezuela. So just aiding and abetting a stated terrorist, a named terrorist organization, they're violating quite a few of treaties, and that's a hostile act, just aiding and abetting.
Right.
So within hours of declaration, the federal immigration authorities deported 130 people.
Once again, because of the Aliens Enemy Act being used, they can fast track removing these people, and that's what you want.
On April 7th, Supreme Court ruled that the Trump administration hadn't provided adequate due process under the Alien Enemies Act, but the justices took no position on whether the invocation of the law was legitimate, which is interesting. This might be another one of those examples. They want the lower courts to go through, iron that out before they make a final ruling.
And I understand something. Due process is one of your natural rights, and as one of your protected privileges and immunities, according to Article 4, Section 2 of the United States Constitution. We don't have to give these people due process. We do because we're a good guy. We're a good government. We want to be fair to people, but we don't have to. And if they are enemies, the Congress and the executive branch, in response to that, could do whatever they want with enemy combatants, because that's what they are, enemy combatants captured on land or sea, getting back to Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution. So all of this is very constitutional. Trump is definitely within his constitutional bounds, and we have a court who hates him so much, the Constitution doesn't matter here. All that matters is their narrative.
The other judge that voted against Trump was Judge Irma Ramirez, a Biden appointee. She dissented from the ruling, just saying that those challenging the Alien Enemies Act should have 21 days to take legal action and not just 7. And here's the dissent from a guy by the name of Judge Andrew Oldham, a Trump appointee. Today, the majority holds that President Trump is just an ordinary civil litigant. His declaration of a predatory incursion is not conclusive. Far from it. Rather, President Trump must plead sufficient facts as if he were some run-of-the-mill plaintiff in a breach of contract case to convince a federal judge that he's entitled to relief. Goes on to say that contravenes over 200 years of legal precedent, and it transmogrifies the least dangerous branch into robed crusaders who get to play act as multitudinous commanders-in-chief. It's pretty nice language. I wanted to go a little deeper into the dissent. The summary here says he argued that the majority was improperly second-guessing the president's authority in national security and foreign affairs, areas traditionally granted broad deference by the courts. He warned that the opinion is not only unprecedented, it is contrary to more than 200 years of precedent.
Separation of powers, my friends. Separation of powers. More than 200 years of precedent is the separation of powers. Typically, I'm not real fond of precedent. It comes down to what the Constitution says. But in this case, the precedent does follow what the Constitution says. Separation of powers. The federal courts have no authority whatsoever. They're the weakest branch according to the Constitution originally. They have no authority whatsoever to be dictating to another branch, much less micromanaging their actions, especially when it comes to foreign affairs, but really across the board.
And that's exactly what Judge Oldham said in his dissent. The second point is he strongly objected to the court treating the president's proclamation like a run-of-the-mill plaintiff. I've read that to you. The third critique he had is he blasted the panel's approach as a judicial overreach, saying it effectively turns judges into rogue crusaders, as we read. So this is a pretty good dissent, but the headlines are all saying, "Oh, Trump lost again." All the courts have really ruled is that they don't think that he established the case strong enough to use the Alien Enemies Act. That'll probably get appealed to either the full panel or the Supreme Court. Now,
and they'll probably pull out more classified information to defend their case.
Yeah, I would imagine that they probably withheld some originally. Okay, let's jump into another related story. We'll go to SCOTUS blog.
That's a place I like to visit regularly.
Yeah, it's you can always find stories. And this is SCOTUSblog.com. I like this article right here. What the Trump administration wants from the Supreme Court this term. What is his wish list? That came out today. Talking about the big case, one of the big headline ones we've discussed before, he said 2 months after winning a case on universal injunctions that stemmed from President Donald Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship, which there's a very long video that Doug and I did on birthright citizenship on my channel. Please check it out. Just look. And
I've done a few myself at my channel, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's one we've got a lot of material on. Trump administration has signaled that it expects birthright citizenship to be back in front of the Supreme Court soon. So originally they ruled on whether these universal injunctions were lawful without ruling on the birthright citizenship case. Now we're waiting for the birthright citizenship to make its way back there.
For them to actually decide what the definition should be. And this is, I was just talking about this on a show recently. Sunday night and Saturday. This, what do they call it? A plain reading of the text instead of going into the context. The context is, in other words, what was meant originally, and that's where this is going to get interesting. I'm hoping, and I've heard Trump's team mention people like Senator Howard and Senator Trumbull. So we'll see if they really go at it the way they should.
It goes on, and it says, "Yeah, that's going to be. We're going to be watching that one very closely. We'll probably live stream when those hearings come out. That might be a good idea."
Yeah.
To that end, the Solicitor General said there's multiple lawsuits challenging the EO. The Solicitor General plans to seek certiorari expeditiously to enable the Supreme Court to settle the lawfulness of the executive order next term, but he's not yet determined which case or combination of cases to take to court. This is a very important sentence right there, because these different cases are going to rest on different merits, and the Solicitor General gets to decide which one allows him to prove his case the most strongly. I bring this up because he's probably got a good chance of winning the birthright citizenship case that's on the docket. That's the question here. But depending on how what the Solicitor General's ask is when he petitions the Supreme Court, natural born citizenship, which has never been adjudicated, could be back on the docket. It's not officially now, but it's entirely possible that it could be, and that would be a major victory. Regardless of what that cert petition is filed or when it is, It won't be the Trump administration's first attempt to get an issue added to the merits docket. Through filings this summer, it's already asked the judges to weigh in on Second Amendment rights of habitual drug users, as well as the rights of asylum seekers at the U.S.-Mexican border. Okay, what else is he looking for?
And understand that while all this is going on, the public is watching, and the public is wiser than it was before. And they voted Trump in to do a job, and they're watching these leftist judges and these leftist politicians, these leftist administrators in the deep state swamp all do everything they can to stop them. So what do you think that's doing for the minds of the voters who are now paying attention but didn't before?
Yeah, he's definitely, he's winning on a lot of these 80-20 issues, and he's forcing the Democrats to take positions that just are not electorally popular at all. Let's see, we don't quite have time to get into the next one, but it's going to be about controlled substances and the Second Amendment. And I'll read the prelude to it. 1 year after the Supreme Court ruled on Second Amendment rights of individuals who are subject to domestic violence restraining orders, and 3 years after it emphasized the importance of tying such things to history and tradition, the Trump administration is asking the justices to again address the scope of the Second Amendment. That could be a big deal, but we'll talk about that when we get back from the break.
Barbecue, the Butcher's Kitchen, would like to thank every customer for your loyalty and continued support through these challenging times. Call for takeout and delivery of rib tips, brisket, ahi, tuna, roasted veggies, and much more. Barbecue's open from 11 to 7, Monday through Saturday, and delivers hot food safe and healthy. Call 499-5855 for details. 499-5855 Barbecue, as featured on diners, drive-ins, and dives. Get real. Get into Barbecue Reno.
Hi, this is Eddie Floyd. Let me tell you about my favorite non-profit public charity, Wainema Wild Horse Sanctuary, located on the Forsyth Ranch in Hallelujah Junction area. And please go to www.wainemaranch.com. That's WYNEMA ranch.com.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work. Sorry, I'm late. Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi. Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now back to the
Hey, we are back for the final episode of Re-Federalist Radio today. Final segment. Hopefully it's not the final episode. No, we plan on keeping this going for a while, and pretty soon I think we're going to be live streaming this on my Rumble channel too, or one of my Rumble channels. So we'll make that announcement when we're ready. When we last left you off, we have the Trump administration petitioning the Supreme Court to rule on several Second Amendment issues. They mentioned the hearing or the findings from 3 years ago when the Dobbs decision talking about the, quote, history and tradition of gun laws. And the Trump administration is asking the justices to, again, address the scope of the Second Amendment. Now, that's a very dangerous question, and depending on how it is worded, it's got a chance to really do something right, but I'm not sure the Supreme Court's quite ready for that. Summing it up, through the cert petitions in 5 separate cases involving guns and illegal drugs, federal officials have urged the court to decide whether, in quotes, the federal statute that prohibits the possession of firearms by a person who is an unlawful user or addicted to any controlled substance violates the Second Amendment. What's wrong with that sentence, Doug?
So much. You really got the time for this? So from a constitutional standpoint, shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed. What that means is every single federal gun law of any kind are unconstitutional. If there's going to be any restrictions for persons not, regarding gun ownership or gun being able to carry a gun, that really needs to be taken care of at the state level. Now, that said, historically, criminal offenses, losing one's right to keep and bear arms because of criminal offenses is not our laws are not strangers to that. But from the original intent, it's not about whether or not the person has a criminal offense or any other problem going on. It comes down to simply where does the authority lie, and it does not lie in the federal government.
So the Trump administration is showing not an originalist viewpoint when they're trying to push these cases and allow.
Well, yes and no. The best way to get it out of the hands of the federal government and back to the states is to start chipping away at federal law on this. And what he's saying is, hey, federal law needs to back off on this and back off on that. They're chipping away at it.
Yeah, I don't think this will be the case that gets the Supreme Court to really talk about incorporation of the Bill of Rights, but that's really what we're hinting at, is the enumeration doctrine, and of course the 9th and 10th Amendment make it crystal clear that if the Constitution doesn't forbid an authority to the state, they can still do it. And it also says if the Constitution doesn't grant an authority to the federal government, they can't do it. Since gun laws were not even mentioned in the Constitution till 2 years later when we had the Bill of Rights, it stands to reason that when the Constitution was ratified, all gun laws were regulated by the states. Nothing that's happened since has changed that, if we're going by an original intent.
Now, the first response I get when I say that, well, yeah, but what about states like California where they're abusing it? Somebody has to get them under control. Yeah, that's called you, the voter.
Yeah, and the other best example of I like to cite of whether the founding fathers thought that the Bill of Rights was incorporated. You have to go back to Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptists talking about the First Amendment, and it's crystal clear that the federal government could make no law regarding establishment of a religion. It says, but the states can. And if the Bill of Rights, and that was after the Bill of Rights.
Yeah, well, the passage of the Bill of Rights in its own right when it came to religious freedom. I mean, 10 states, actually 9 states technically, still had established churches. They didn't suddenly get rid of their established churches once the Establishment Clause was enforced because it was all about the federal government, first of all. And second of all, when it comes to the Second Amendment and the incorporation, what it does, what incorporation does, is it allows the federal government to enforce the Bill of Rights and micromanage the states. Well, in other words, what the courts are trying to do to Trump on his executive branch, same thing.
Yeah, and this article goes into that a little bit more. It says, to be clear, the Trump administration does not want the justices to hear arguments on all 5 cases. Instead, it urged the court to take up something called United States versus Himani, in which the government described as the best case for determining if there are compelling legal and historical reasons to uphold the law preventing habitual drug users and addicts from owning guns. The key words there are compelling legal and historical reasons. Well, if they're going to go for the true history is that the federal government didn't have the authority to make any gun laws whatsoever. Now, are there compelling legal reasons? Certainly. They should be done by the states.
Yeah. Now, if a state wants to pass a law saying, hey, you're a habitual user, we don't want you to have guns, then fine. If the state wants to have background checks, fine. Federal government doesn't have the authority to do those things.
Very good. And yet we have the federal government pushing for that to happen. So Doug makes a case of incrementalism. I'd like to see, obviously I want to see incorporation adjudicated once and for all, the right direction.
Yeah, well, it took us 240 years to get where we're at. It might take a couple hundred years to get back where we want to be. But that also means that we're going to have to be vigilant and getting it in that direction. And our children and their children and so forth must be vigilant.
We got time to jump into one of the wish lists for Trump with the Supreme Court this term. They would like to see added to the merits docket involves the process for making asylum claims at the U.S.-Mexico border. Specifically, in Nome versus Al Otro Lado, the government is asking the justices to determine at what point someone seeking protection from violence or discrimination in our home country arrives in the United States, in quotes, and is thus entitled to the opportunity to meet with an immigration officer and formally apply for asylum under the Immigration and Nationality Act. Well, it's very interesting. If you look at the international asylum laws, and they were put in place for humanitarian reasons, the way it's supposed to read, or the way it was written, is that you can ask for asylum in the first country you get to. Given the geography, almost nobody gets to the United States as their first country to seek asylum. And that's been one of the big arguments from day one, criticizing even the Biden administration policy. They're not asylums, or they're not asylum seekers. You want to touch on that before we go on?
Asylum is a wonderful thing in true cases. Unfortunately, once again, it's become a politically motivated thing. The founding fathers, the Democrats want basically illegal aliens. To them are undocumented Democrats, and they want to give them all asylum so they can be here, so they can vote. But when real asylum seekers, like the folks from South Africa, seek asylum, suddenly it's not a good thing. We definitely need to honor asylum. What we need to do is crack down on the misuse of it.
Yeah, very much so. And the whole thing about being the first country you touch ground with, the Biden administration got around with that with all their flights in from other countries, and
right.
That's going to be challenging. Same thing with we flew in a lot of Afghan refugees that were never vetted, and a lot of them are going to be asked to go back. So it's a pretty important issue.
And don't get me wrong, the process is difficult, maybe too difficult. Do we need reform when it comes to immigration and asylum and all that? Absolutely. I've got a friend who was a refugee, so to speak, from Romania when it was a communist, escaped into Israel, but he couldn't get into the United States, so he wound up in the Dominican Republic. He's the only Romanian I know that also speaks Spanish. But anyway, and it took him 10 years before he was able to get in the United States. I've got a cousin who married a Japanese woman. It took him 10 years to get her in the United States. So there's something wrong with the process. But throwing open the borders and throwing caution to the wind is not the way to fix it.
Very much so. Now, this isn't necessarily a constitutional question so much as asking for an interpretation on how do we apply, international treaties with our existing law. It's not necessarily a constitutional question, but it still belongs in the purview of the Supreme Court. That is the proper place for this one, I believe, to be decided. And that's one of the big issues is you've got all these humanitarian organizations like El Altro Lodo organizing, serving refugees and other migrants. And really what they do is they just try to back up the system. Everyone gets released into the interior. They get paid. That's what all these NGOs are all about. Oh, there's a few other cases worth noticing. There'll be a tariff case. There will be there'll be someone
and the tariffs, once again, it's protected by law. He's following the law. He's given the option to do what he's doing with the law. And do you really want our tariffs in such a situation where we've got to get under control, going to committees, and maybe a year or two from now, it might be decided on whether or not to put a tariff on a country?
Nope, we're going to be hearing more about this one for sure. Doug, we've got about a minute to go. It's going to be an exciting Supreme Court term, as always.
We got a little bit more in a minute, but go ahead.
I was going to give you plenty of time just to tell everyone where to find you.
Oh, well, that's easy. DouglasVGibbs.com. That's my name. Douglas, Douglas, V as in victory, Gibbs, Gibbs. But also, you don't have to just look on my site, although there are links on my site to get where you need to get. I'm also on the air quite a bit. I'm on Patriots Soapbox on Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific. And on Sundays, 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm on KMET, 1490 AM, 1 o'clock Pacific on Saturdays. I am on KPRZ, KCBQ down in San Diego, both stations, Salem stations, on Saturday night, 8 o'clock. And that show is also put on all of the podcast platforms. All you need to do is, in the search area of your podcast platform that you enjoy, the one you like most, just type Mr. Constitution Hour by Douglas V. Gibbs. It'll probably pop up. And then on Tuesdays, at 3:30 in the afternoon Pacific time. I'm on Rumble, MrConstitution.com, mr-constitution.com. This is my friend Ron's Rumble page. So if you go there and you go, what's just a Rumble page? Look for the ones that say Learn the Constitution, and you will see those shows. And it's live at 3:30 Pacific on Tuesdays. And of course, I'm right here with War Hamster on Wednesdays, and I have my own show at 11 a.m. Pacific on Thursday. Same place, right here on America Matters Media, ZakiRadio.com. And of course, my own videos, my own blog posts, and everything else that goes along with it. You want to be sure to become a member of what I do. Hit the join link in the link bar at DouglasVGibbs.com and be a member of the movement.
Yeah, and you'll see me dropping into his shows from time to time because I like to be summoned. Until the next time, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Cheers.